Hi, I'm Chuck Marundi, and welcome to my video series on buying and selling real estate. In this video, I want to talk about two really significant traps for the unwary. Now, when you're buying real estate, you want a good purchase and sale agreement with all of the contingencies addressed and the right addendums, but you also want clear and unambiguous language. I talked about that in one of my earlier videos in this series. But there are two legal issues that I want to bring to your attention just so that you're aware. One is adverse possession, and two is what we call an easement by prescription. Now, in Clallam County, in the Sequim and Port Angeles area, we have a history of real estate development that came out of an agricultural background. That meant that a lot of farmers sold off portions of their farms as real estate became more valuable. So you would have a 200-acre farm that might peel off 40 acres, which might be subdivided into 5-acre parcels or 10-acre parcels, and so on. Well, you end up with a lot of farmland in the area that had old barbed wire fences that was built maybe in the 40s, and now as property is subdivided, sometimes those old fences do not accurately mark the boundaries of the new subdivision lots. We have a lot of property out here where the fences have been in that same place, supposedly marking the boundary between two lots for many, many years. But according to a survey, the fence may actually be off 2 feet, 7 feet, maybe 15 feet. In Washington, as with many other states, whoever has that property within the fence line, as long as they meet the prima facie elements of the law, and essentially those things involve using that property within that fence line as their very own property. So they've used it open and notoriously, they've used it exclusively, they've used it just like it's their own. Maybe they've been mowing it up to the fence line, maybe they have fruit trees that are planted there and they've been tending to those. In any event, if they have been doing that for the requisite period of time, the statute of limitations, which in Washington is 10 years, then they own that property by adverse possession. So someone can actually own 2 or 3 or 7 feet of your property if they have complied with the law for that 10-year period. Now, the title doesn't change, their legal description doesn't automatically change. In order for them to actually include that additional footage in their legal description, they would either have to get a quitclaim deed from the neighbor and fully describing that legal description, the new legal description of both lots. There would have to be a boundary line adjustment and a quitclaim deed. Or what happens, unfortunately, too often is that the parties get into a dispute over who owns that property. One claiming it by adverse possession and the other saying, no, 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 that's my property, you can't have it. Well, there is such a thing as a lawsuit called a quiet title action, which will resolve who actually owns that property. In other words, the person who's claiming by adverse possession has to prove the prima facie elements and that they have done that for at least 10 years. They can do that through evidence of photographs, documents, testimony, and so on. But adverse possession is alive and well in the case law in the state of Washington, and it still is in many other states around the country. That's one significant issue. So you want to make sure that when you're buying land that the fence line is where it should be. The boundary line is where it should be. And if you need help with that, you might want to contact a surveyor. The other issue I want to talk to you about is easement by prescription. Now, this is similar to adverse possession. But an easement by prescription involves a driveway or typically a road across someone else's property, where you have a lot of farm property that was divided, as it is out in the Sequim and Port Angeles area. sometimes what you'll get is a driveway that comes across a 20-acre parcel, and maybe it cuts across the corner of the adjacent property. No one may really know that. Sometimes the lots aren't perfectly rectangular or square, so and with the topography uneven, it might be unclear exactly where the boundary line is. So it's not unusual for a driveway to do that and to be partially on the adjacent property. If they use that easement for 10 years and they comply with the law on what they have to do, which is to use that driveway open and notoriously and so on for a continuous 10-year period without permission by the owner of the property next door, then like adverse possession, they will have a legal right to continue to use that driveway, and they will essentially own it by prescription. Of course, like adverse possession, the legal description is not automatically changed if a person owns it by prescription. They would have to get a document from the neighbor, like a quitclaim deed describing the exact location of that easement, or they would have to commence a lawsuit, which again is a quiet title action, asking that that easement be resolved in and vested in the person who is claiming they've been using it for at least 10 years. I hope this has been helpful, and if you're thinking about buying a home in Sequim or Perangelos, I hope you'll contact me as your buyer's agent. You can find me on the internet at sequimrealestatenews.com. I'm Chuck Marundi. Thanks for joining me.